Hello everyone, welcome to this new session of Daily News Decoded. My name is Rajat and we will be discussing 5 important news articles from today's newspaper. And these important news articles are: Number 1, Delhi should look beyond H1B visa. Number 2 is violence against women. The article, to be specific, was in yesterday's newspaper, but it remains relevant. Then number 3, Mission Mausam. Number 4, peace deal between Israel and Hamas. And number 5, why India is warming slower. So let's start with the discussion. Starting with the first article, that is, Delhi must look beyond H1B. So there were 2 articles, and here the backdrop is Trump's re-election to power. The election of Trump is expected will change the nature of the relationship between America and the rest of the world. And here there were 2 articles. The first article, which was in yesterday's The Hindu, specifically focus upon what changes will be introduced by the Trump regime. Then the second article, which was in today's newspaper, about Delhi must look beyond the H1B. This specifically focus on the one of the thorny issues between India and America, that is the immigration issue, the H1B visas. Along with that, the article also focuses upon the technology dimension of the international relation and how technology is increasingly becoming important and what will be the near-term impact of Trump's policies on specifically the technology domain. So let's start with the discussion. The backdrop, as we have just discussed. The second thing is the relevance in the examination. The bilateral relation with the superpowers or the major powers is one of the important segments from where questions do come. And India-US relationship is a very consequential relationship. As you must know that India and US elevated their relationship to global strategic partnership. And this relationship was also called from stars to the seas. Now, starting off with the first article. Now, a previous year question. The US is facing an existential threat in the form of a China that is much more challenging than the erstwhile Soviet Union. So, as we see, the changing world order is an important theme, and a question has already been asked. So, understanding the relationship between the rise of China and the responses from the US will be somehow helpful in addressing this particular theme. Now moving on to America first and its impact. So what has been the recent change? The election of Trump. And what is the larger impact of election of Trump? How will it change the nature of international relations? So Trump and the rule-based international order. The rule-based international order consists of international institutions of global governance like the United Nations. Then we have international agreements. We find that Trump places American sovereignty over global governance. And how can we see this? First, the walking back from the Paris Agreement. Then scrapping of TPP, that is Transatlantic Partnership. Number 3, the approach towards the NATO allies. Here, there seems to be an assumption in the Trump regime that these agreements are not favorable or are being executed at the expense of America. So that is why there is not much interest in multilateral institutions. Rather, there is an increasing approach towards dealing bilaterally or minilaterally. Then coming to the rhetoric of making America great again. Also called as MAGA. What is the impact of this increasing transactionalism by the US? Here we find that this will lead to more unpredictability. Increasing protectionism. So these are certain keywords which one should keep in mind. For example, earlier we discussed multilateralism. Then we talked about the international institutions. Then the international agreements. These are key reference points through which you can analyze the relationship between the rising China, the US, the change in the rules-based international order. Then about making America great again and the transactionalism present in the Trump administration. Here we will find that this will lead to rising protectionism. Then focusing about global institutions, the respect for international law. Will reduce. Transgressions of international law will increase. The behavior of USA will somehow encourage other countries to also bypass the international rules and procedures. So this is not conducive for a peaceful environment. Then coming back to American isolationism. The approach of Trump has been to withdraw troops from the war zones. So there will be no engagement of America as such in any particular war zone. So what will be the long-term result of this? Other adversaries of US such as Russia and China will try to fill in that vacuum, and they will try to gain leverage politically through their military and economic means. So all in all, what is the cumulative result of election of Trump? So there will be decline of rule-based international order. Increasing transactionalism will lead to reducing free trade, will increase protectionism and tariff, will also reduce the reach of globalization. And then about global institutions and the global international law, there will be less adherence to the international law. The already concluded treaties will again be relooked. The American isolationism, that is pulling off the troops from major war zones of the world, will lead to again more space to China and Russia, and all these things will impact the world order. We will be discussing here what should be the approach of India, what should be India's outlook towards election of Trump. First of all, will this result in any change in relationship? So structurally, the relationship has evolved at a steady pace, and it is increasingly cooperating in new areas, for example, technology, defense, innovation. So it is difficult that progress along all these areas will be reversed. But there are certain thorny issues which will remain. For example, the trade between India and USA. US has a trade deficit with India. Issues such as market access, shall still remain in the relationship. Then, what is India's relevance to US? Increasing competition between China and US places India and US at strategic convergence. So this is the whole context, like there are fundamentals in place, the relationship has steadily grown, and today India is more relevant to US as a geopolitical swing state. US seeks to balance China in Asia itself and also in the Indo-Pacific, wherein India becomes a crucial partner. But how should India approach this? So India should not develop dependence on USA. India should focus upon its own strategic priorities. India should not generate dependence on US for all the critical supplies, for example on technology, economic aid. But one should keep in mind what all are India's priorities. What should India prioritize? The priorities. Our own strategic priorities are compulsion of economic growth. We need to lift our population out of poverty, then there is compulsion of economic growth. Then energy security. This forces us to have good relation with sources of energy, countries that supply energy to India, like fossil fuels, building up of renewable energy. And security along South Asia. Secure maritime boundaries. Technology development, the future technologies like AI, all these have strategic connotation. So these are all immediate strategic priorities of India, and our foreign policy should keep these priorities in mind. Now moving on to the next, the specific theme of H1B visa. Now let's discuss the specific theme. The article suggests that India must look beyond H1B visa, and the article builds up a context. The context is that India exports technology talent to USA. Now this is a skilled talent, skilled workforce. The backlash against the immigration, specifically H1B visas, is part of the larger political sentiment against immigration. Next, the American economy faces labor shortage. In areas such as agriculture, healthcare, and technology domain. So there is a certain demand for skilled workforce from outside. So there is a demand for immigration, but along with that there is a sentiment which is against the immigration. So the political sentiment is against the immigration, but the business environment and the structural realities of the American economy wants to attract more skilled labor from other countries. So there is a fundamental contradiction between these two things. And then the argument from both sides, on the one end, is that immigration leads to stagnation of wages. But on the other hand, there is a liberal argument on humanitarian lines that there should be freedom of movement for the labor as well, because everyone has the right to realize their own potential. So this is the fundamental argument between the immigration issue. Then now we will be discussing what will be the major pillars of America's technology policy under Donald Trump and what will be its impact. The first would be the impact on the political dimension. Social media is increasingly being used in the electoral process, and Facebook, its initiative of fact check unit was alleged to be biased against certain political views. Now, after the advent of Trump, now we are seeing Facebook will also change its fact check unit to similar on similar lines to Twitter's community notes approach. These are the mechanisms to curb free speech or censor what is being published on social media. So it is said that this move will decisively give advantage to certain political spectrum. So there will be a political dimension of technology because of advent of Trump. Then there is the angle of bureaucracy. The Trump administration does not favor heavy bureaucracy, and Trump has appointed Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to find ways to make the administration lean. So there will be less regulation over artificial intelligence. Then there is the technology competition with China. US is right now amidst a technology competition with China, and the strategy followed by the Biden administration of reshoring and friendshoring. These two are important keywords which can be used in the answers. Reshoring means bringing back the manufacturing and advanced technology back to America, and friendshoring means shifting whatever possible manufacturing to friendly countries so that the supply chains can be secure and the sensitive technology is not leaked to the adversary. And building alliances. This was the strategy of Biden administration, and it is hopeful that this strategy will still continue. And this is where India plays an important role. Then there are few questions being posed against how will Trump engage China. Will there be a grand bargain? Will we see cooperation between China and America? Because one of the important advisors of the Trump government, Elon Musk, has significant economic interest in China. So this is a major question which is to be seen, and such questions can be posed in the interview. So these are the three important dimensions which the article discusses, from where the Trump's technology policy will have a greater impact. Now the conclusion from both of the articles are, so there is convergence of three factors right now in the technology domain in the international affairs. One, the current turning point in the history of technology development. Technology is becoming more and more consequential for international relations. Then this is the factor number one. These are the changes which are being seen. Then number two, America's capacity for rapid innovation. And third, the Trump's political will to promote global change. So these are the three factors which will be defining the international relations in the near term. But whether one likes it or not, India's tech talent is integral to first two factors. And then the established patterns of engagement between the nations will no longer serve as a guide to the future. And right now, the structure of the world is being called as G0 world. G2 would be two important superpowers, but G0 means no one country has dominance over the other country. So here we have arrived in a G0 world, and the law of the jungle may provide the new global playbook. So these can be important keywords and conclusions which one can use. And then this is a practice question. So do write this answer and try to post it in the comments. And now let's move to the next topic. That is transforming mentalities and redefining masculinities. So there was an article in yesterday's The Hindu wherein a UNESCO's initiative was discussed, which is called Transforming Mentalities. This article particularly caters to GS1 and the topic of social empowerment and how to address social evil of patriarchy. The article particularly addresses what all strategies can be used to make men as active agents of social change. And the article also mentions certain practices and examples which are being followed in India through a report which was recently published by UNESCO. Now moving on. So these are two previous year questions which we have mentioned. Here also we find patriarchy is a theme which is asked in the examination. For example, how does patriarchy impact position of middle class working women? Distinguish between gender equality, gender equity and women empowerment. Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? Try to attempt these questions and use this article particularly as a value addition and a case study in answering these questions. So moving on, this is a data that over 4.45 lakh crime against women in 2022. This is a data by NCRB report, and one crime in every 51 minutes in India is against women. Then apart from that, despite decades of advocacy, 1 in 3 women has endured violence at the hands of men. So in this article specifically, the key player, the active player here are men. And how can we target men so that there can be an attitudinal shift towards the fundamental concepts of what it means to be a man, so that we can also realize the goal of gender equality. While men are often the perpetrators, but they can also be agents of social change. So how should we make men as key agents of social change? This is the crux of the article. So initially the article discusses about how norms are powerful, how they shape our ideas. So the traditional notions of masculinity from early childhood influence boys by telling them that strength is dominance, emotions are weakness, and asserting control is the way to protect their status. So these ideas not only harm women but also limit men's life by trapping them in cycles of suppressed emotion and aggressive behavior. Now, so this slide explains how attitudes are formed in young men and how norms influence their behavior in the future. The focus now upon the UNESCO report. One can use these initiatives as examples. For example, using transforming mentalities. It aims to change mindset and policies by shedding light on how to successfully engage men and boys for gender equality. Then this was the particular report which has 10 best case studies where certain strategies were implemented. So this is engaging men and boys. It is a report on pathways to gender equality. So this can be an important suggestion to policymakers. So certain examples which have been used are Mardon Wali Baat, gender equity in schools, Dekh Rekh and Hamari Shadi. And this report also mentions about the role models, how celebrities and public figures can initiate social change. Now, starting with these value additions, what is Mardon Wali Baat? So, in Mardon Wali Baat, a strategy of storytelling has been used. Strategy of social media to start conversations about positive masculinity rather than toxic masculinity. This tries to question notions through critical questions, to critically analyzing why gender inequality persists. Fine. Then the second, GEMS, gender equity in schools. This was in Rajasthan, where interactive classrooms were used to develop equitable gender attitudes. Fine. Then there is an important element of Dekh Rekh and Hamari Shadi. Dekh Rekh. Hamari Shadi. So these two initiatives focus upon care, the partners caring for each other. And focuses on active participation in family planning, nutrition, etc. Then role models also can be used in initiating behavioral change. For example, the emphasis on paternity leave by celebrity or a cricket player started a debate in the public discourse that how men should also equally partner and share the burden in child rearing and caretaking. So these are important examples which you can use in your answers, but overall the framework here used is the strategy here. The strategy used to change attitudes of men is through education, through open discussion, and through community action. Friends, one thing to note is only having an abstract idea of what gender equality is will not lead to social change at the ground level. So we need to have some concrete strategies and examples which should be close to everyday life of men so that we can initiate change in them. So this was about the value additions. Now the conclusion as such, the traditional notions of masculinity based on strength, aggression and control needs to be replaced by a culture where equality, empathy and non-violence define alternative notions of manhoods. The positive methods which can initiate these changes can be active participation in household and caregiving, reject violence as a solution, then practice empathy and embrace vulnerability. Vulnerability is not something negative. It should be seen as part and parcel of human life. So delving a bit more about these things, so what is the crux of the article? That we need to redefine what it means to be a man. It also recognizes that the path to equality is a long one. Active participation of men is crucial, and men can play a transformative role. I feel that there cannot be a standalone question on this theme, but you can use these examples, these theory and explanation about how attitudes are developed. So you can use these things in your answers as a part of your answers where women empowerment is asked. So here is a practice question. What can be the strategies to make men an active agent of social change towards gender equality? Explain with examples. Try to answer this question and do post it in the comment box. Moving on to the next topic now. Now the next article, which is Israel-Hamas ceasefire agreement. The backdrop of the article is Israel and Hamas are working out an agreement for the ceasefire on the Gaza Strip, and here the mediator country we have is Qatar. So this deal can have a long-ranging impact on the security of the region. Particularly from the prelims perspective, current events of national and international importance is the syllabus word mentioned. So the important locations associated with Gaza, Israel and Syria become important. Here we have mentioned the map of Israel and specifically Gaza. Two locations were in news, for example, the Rafah crossing. So Rafah crossing forms the border between Gaza and Egypt. So this here, Rafah crossing, forms the border between, this is Egypt, and Gaza also shares its boundaries with the Mediterranean Sea. This is the Mediterranean Sea. On two sides, it is bordering Israel, while on the one side, Egypt, on the other side, it faces the Mediterranean Sea. Other important cities in Gaza are Khan Yunis. Dera Bala was in news today, whereas Khan Yunis could have been seen in the newspapers earlier. Now, having a broad look at the map of Israel. So this particularly is Gaza Strip, which we had seen. This particularly is Gaza Strip. Then here West Bank. Here is Jerusalem, Dead Sea. Israel shares borders with Jordan, then Syria. This region here in red is called Golan Heights. It is a disputed region between Syria and Israel also shares border with Lebanon. And Lebanon is one of the country where we are seeing fighting going on between Israel and Lebanon. And in Lebanon, there is a group called Hezbollah. One can also find questions from these groups. For example, Hezbollah, Hamas and Houthi. These are important rebel groups in the region. Apart from this, there are certain locations which one needs to revise. In Syria, there is a question for you guys. If you can, please do mention the answer in the comments. Does Syria share Mediterranean Sea? Now in Syria, there are few locations which are important. These are number 1, Aleppo, number 2, Raqqa, number 3, Latakia Port, Number 4, Deir al-Zor. So these regions, these particular micro regions were in use due to attacks from Israel. Now, Qatar has a unique status for being a mediator in the Gulf region. So once we will take a look at the map. So this is Qatar, and here we see it does not share boundaries with United Arab Emirates. It is surrounded by Saudi Arabia. Then we see that it is a peninsula. It's in the Persian Gulf. A brief overview of Qatar as a country. It has third largest natural gas reserves. It has one of the highest per capita GDPs in the world. Second flattest country with no hills. Khor Al Adaid, known as the Inland Sea. It is one of the World Heritage Sites in Qatar. Factors contributing to Qatar's influence. Mediation efforts. Qatar's successful mediation of conflicts in past, such as in Lebanon, Yemen, Darfur and Gaza, has established it as a trusted and effective mediator. It has also, in the history, Qatar has played a role of a mediator. Qatar's historical support for Palestine drives its motivation to resolve conflicts in the region. The country maintains close ties with Iran. There are two major powers which are often against each other, Saudi Arabia, and the second one is Iran, and the third one in this case is Israel. Due to closeness to USA, we find that Qatar is able to mediate between Saudi Arabia and Iran as well, and also now this time between Israel and Hamas. The factors contributing to Qatar's influence. Another factor is Qatar's and US relationship. There is military cooperation. US has an air base as Al Udeid. Afghanistan evacuation. Qatar played an important and crucial role in evacuating people from Afghanistan during US withdrawal in 2021. Hosted US Taliban peace talks. Hostage release and prisoner swap. Qatar has helped free Western hostages by extremist group in Syria. Negotiated a prisoner swap between US and Iran. So these are the reasons particularly why Qatar is important. Now this is a practice question. Please do attempt and post the answer in the comments. The next article. PM launched Mission Mausam. During the inaugural event to celebrate 50 years of IMD, Mr. Modi launched Mission Mausam for developing cutting-edge weather surveillance technologies and systems implementing high-resolution atmospheric observation, next-generation radars, satellites and high-performance computers. So this topic directly can be asked about the government initiatives. But apart from that, there are other linkages which can be derived from this initiative. Few factual details about Mission Mausam. It is an initiative which has the objective of forecasting, modeling and dissemination of weather related information, and apart from that it seeks to manage certain weather events. So here is where interlinkages will come in play. What do we mean by manage? Manage means, for example, on demand we can enhance or suppress rainfall, hail, fog and later lightning strikes. So here we will be doing geoengineering. And in the past we have seen that question do occur from this particular theme. For example, ocean fertilization through lime, use of grounded basalt for carbon sequestration, then capture of CO2 from atmosphere by industries and then storing them in underground caves and also creating carbonated water. A small infographic here, a multifaceted and transformative initiative to tremendously boost India's weather and climate related sciences, research and services will help better equip stakeholders including citizens and last mile users in tracking extreme weather events and also impact of climate change. Geoengineering or climate engineering, the technologies and techniques for manipulating the global climate. Here we have bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, extracting bioenergy from biomass and capturing and storing the carbon. So here we have provided a list of techniques which are used in climate and geoengineering. So this is carbon sequestration through bioenergy. Then there is ocean fertilization or ocean nourishment. If oceans are fertilized, then algal growth will lead to increase in CO2 intake due to increased photosynthesis. And this will reduce CO2 in atmosphere, leading to less global warming. As mentioned here, ocean fertilization. Then here we have also mentioned biochar. Agriculture can use biochar, which is helpful in carbon sequestration. Soil carbon sequestration. Soils can serve as sinks of carbon dioxide, and using biochar, and parallelly, as we mentioned earlier, using grounded basalt. These two things can help in soil carbon sequestration. Here we have also mentioned certain other technologies, for example, space mirrors. This will reflect the lights back from the space. Aerosols, we have mentioned this in the next slide. Stratospheric aerosol injection. Gases are pumped in the stratosphere to reflect some of the sun's heat, mimicking an effect happening naturally in strong volcanic eruption. So here at the stratosphere, aerosol leading to cooling. Marine cloud brightening. Sea salts or other particles are sprayed into marine clouds to make them thicker and more reflective. So through making clouds more thicker, reflecting the light which is incoming, we are trying to control the insolation. Then the cirrus cloud thinning technique. This was asked in 2019 UPSC pre as well. The cirrus cloud thinning proposes thinning high altitude cirrus clouds further through cloud seeding, letting more long wave radiation escape. So this question is slightly conceptual. If this is the Earth's surface, here we have cirrus clouds. These clouds are known to absorb long wave radiations, and then they ultimately result in increasing temperature. If these clouds are thinned, then this allows the trapped heat to release into the atmosphere. This leads to cooling. So, there is a small question about mission Mausam. Please do attempt them and let us know in the comment section. Now moving on to the last topic, that is India is warming slower. This was in today's Indian Express Explained. The 1.2 degrees Celsius warming over India is considerably less than 1.6 degrees Celsius or higher that has been experienced over the global land surface. What is important here? The differential climate change impact on Arctic versus, maybe say here we are discussing India. From this article, one can extract that Arctic as a region serves as a refrigerator for the whole Earth. So you can use this in your mains as well, Arctic as refrigerator. It regulates global temperature. And because being at poles, here the impact of climate change is more pronounced. Moving on to the content. So India is located in the tropics, quite close to the equator. The increase in global temperature has been more pronounced in the higher altitudes, near the polar regions than the equator. This is an important fact. This can help you in solving many other questions. So please do understand this. Then the polar regions, higher temperature rise. Albedo effect. In the polar regions, there is a cascading effect. Ice reflects light, and if ice melts due to global warming, then the ground surface, which will be bare, will absorb the incoming radiation, which will again lead to more heating, which will again lead to more melting of ice. So earlier, this incoming solar radiations which were reflected back to the atmosphere will now be absorbed, which will then lead to increase in global temperatures. Higher altitude. Most land masses are at higher altitude experiencing more pronounced warming. Higher altitude, again there is a similar phenomena going on in the higher altitudes, that is cover of ice. As earlier the sunlight was reflected, now when the ice cover is very little, we see few of the solar radiation being absorbed and few being reflected. This results in more global warming, increase in temperature. So there is more pronounced impact of albedo effect. The reasons for lower warming, as per IPCC, Arctic has seen a temperature increase by 2 times compared to the global average. India's temperature rise is slower because location is near the equator, where temperature rise is slower. Atmospheric phenomena, the heat transfer from tropics to poles. As we discuss, the poles, both the north and the south pole, act as refrigerators or temperature regulators of the planet. So the heat at the tropics is transferred to the poles through air circulation and also through oceanic currents, which regulate the temperature at the surface. So, aerosol effect, high concentration of aerosol in India's atmosphere scatters solar radiation, cooling the region. Sulfur aerosol also plays an important role here. Dust and air pollution, particulate matter and aerosol lower temperature rise but contribute to air pollution. So sulfur dioxide as well, it is not a greenhouse gas, but it is a air pollutant, whereas sulfur dioxide leads to cooling rather than heating. Here we have another practice question for you guys. Please do try to attempt this and let us know in the comment section. I hope you liked the video and extracted valuable information for your preparation. Please do let us know in the comment section below if you have any feedback for us. Thank you and see you in the next session.